Hey there, Angela Herrington back again with another session from the Deconstructing Faith Summit. Thanks so much for being here today. We're going to have a fantastic session. I'm going to introduce you to a friend in just a moment, but first, a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure that you are connected with the Faith Deconstruction Cafe because we're having lots of cool conversations over there about summit sessions. And also, you've got a little chat box right next to the video. You can actually have some conversations in real time. We're going to be processing the information that we're learning and chatting and just talking about our own experiences. Remember that doing both of those things actually earns you entries into the contest. We're giving away a couple of seats in the Deconstructing Your Faith course that's coming right after the summit. So feel free to do that. This is not like school. This is one of those places we're actually going to encourage you to express your opinion, ask messy questions, and just talk and get connected to the rest of the community. Let me introduce you to our next speaker. Teng is an embodiment coach who works in the intersections of spirituality and sexuality. Okay, she helps people find their way back to their bodies, overcome shame, and dismantle purity culture in a way that's in alignment with their values and beliefs so they can build a healthy sexual ethic and thrive in freedom and wholeness. Aside from her one-on-one coaching, Tara hosts women's circles, workshops, online classes, and retreats throughout Vancouver on the topics of theology, justice, embodiment, sexuality, and relationship. And she is currently working on her first book on embodiment and justice, available everywhere, not just somewhere, but everywhere in 2023 from Broadleaf Books. Tara comes to this work after witnessing her generation's struggle under the oppressive confines of the purity industries movement of the 90s and 2000s. Bringing with it all the broken relationships, sexual dysfunctions, autoimmune disorders, and sexual violence that ensued as a result of abstinence-only teaching. And it really left us with an unhealthy obsession with virginity and lack of sexual ethics in our relationships. Tara's also spent 10 years working to advance the socioeconomic status of women, diminish sexual violence, and end human trafficking alongside collaborative work with community stakeholders, lawmakers, and some amazing organizations. Her advocacy work has helped to pass new laws in Canada that protect victims of human trafficking, and she's established Canada's first municipal action plan to combat human trafficking. Holy moly, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like we could do a 10-hour-long interview and just scratch the surface of the wisdom that you have to offer, so I appreciate you carving out time from all this amazing work to be here with us today.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad to be here with you guys. I feel like you guys are my people. We come from similar backgrounds and we're processing similar things. And so I'm really excited to spend time together today.
Yeah, I wonder if you could get us started by just sharing a little bit about how your faith has maybe shifted and changed throughout the years.
Yeah, it's gone through a big shift. I actually had people at one point in time, because I was a former Miss Canada, and so I was traveling and speaking a lot, and I'm also a pastor's kid. And so I had people come up to me and be like, wow, you're like the poster child. And I'm like, oh no. Because I was so in it. Like, I was a counselor at summer Bible camp, and I attended a private Christian liberal arts university, and preached at church, spoke at church, was like in it because it was my whole life and was my whole identity. When you're growing up in a pastor's family, you don't really have any choice in the matter. And it was my whole world. And it was something that I was really passionate about and I believed in deeply. But at the same time, there were these things in my body that felt tension.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I couldn't ignore the way that this tension in my body continued to grow. And it would be triggered by certain things. Like, it would be triggered, especially when I started attending youth group. And again, like you read in my bio, I came of age at the height of the purity culture movement. So I'm like a late 80s baby. So I came of age in like 90s, 2000s. Your same things that are happening pop cultures. Like you've got like boy bands and Britney Spears. And, I remember like these huge conversations that we were having publicly about these major celebrities. Were they having sex? Weren't they having sex? And at the same time, my youth pastors were preaching purity culture and handing out rings, right? And so that was what I grew up in. And it's more, anyone who grew up in purity culture knows that it's more than just that. It's more than just save yourself for a relationship that is meaningful to you. It's save yourself for your potential hypothetical spouse. I was like 10, 11 years old when I was being encouraged to pledge my virginity to a future spouse that I had no idea whether they existed or not.
Oh my gosh.
And the reasoning that was sold to me behind that was because that was what was holiness looked like. That was what goodness looked like. That's what morality and integrity looked like. If I wanted to be faithful in my faith, it meant disconnecting myself from my body and from my sexuality, which doesn't matter where we sit on the spectrum, our sexuality is part of our humanity. So I actually had to sacrifice my humanity on the altar for faithfulness, for goodness, for integrity. And so it was one of those things that I went along with because I was never, many of us was never taught agency, was never taught advocating for myself or for my own body, or learning to discern where my embodied boundaries are so that I could say, hey, I'm feeling this tension in my body. It doesn't sit right. Let's talk about it. And I remember even times when I did approach, like when I was working at a summer camp and I did approach my superior and said, hey, I'm struggling with the way that we're trying to funnel all of these teens into this message of purity culture. She looked at me and was questioning, like, you have this, like, where's this rebel spirit coming from in you? And was questioning then my character and my integrity because I was asking questions that were important. And so I think that this is something that sadly is not unfamiliar to many of us. This is not unique just to my story, where we were gaslit and we were silenced and we were taught to mistrust our bodies, to mistrust ourselves, that we couldn't ask questions. And it does a lot of damage to us on a deep level. It does a lot of damage to our personhood, especially when we are young children. Children are so beautiful at asking questions. And to constantly be met with, you don't know the answers, you can't trust yourself, just sit down and listen to us because we know the way, because we've been to seminary and we've read the Bible and we know God more than God.
Yeah.
And that's what I find is the root cause of all of this. It was a method of control. But the point of it, how they got that control, was to break the inherent trust that we have in the wisdom of our bodies. And I truly believe if you're going through this period of deconstruction, I've gone through 2 periods of deconstruction myself, but if you're going through this period of deconstruction, I still believe that there is goodness. There is goodness in the body. And maybe you consider yourself the community that we're spending time with today. Maybe you who's watching it, you feel like, I don't want to be in any faith community. I'm ex-evangelical, or anti-evangelical, I've even heard. Maybe you're still wrestling with this through deconstruct. Wherever it is that you end up landing for a period of time or forever, I still think that there's goodness in the body. For me personally, I still believe that we're made in the image of God. But I think that the God that I was taught about as a child is not the God that I know today. And I think that's one of the big things that have evolved for me, is that I know God in a different way. When I say God, it means something different than it did as a child. But I still find goodness and holiness and divinity in my body. And that's not something that I have to fear or shut down, but it's something that is inherent within all of us. And it leads us where we need to be.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. I'm really curious. You talk about we're taught not to trust our bodies and to not trust that there is inherent goodness. How do you, so we talk about trauma a lot. So tell me a little bit about how you define trauma. And then after trauma, how do we learn to trust our bodies?
Yeah. I think those are such critical questions. So I come to this place in my work. Yes, I've studied theology and I've studied that academically, but I've also studied psychology, neuroscience, and somatic therapy. So I am a trained somatic practitioner. And what that looks like is the word soma is Greek and it means of the body. So we're not talking about like head knowledge here. We're talking about lived experience. What does it feel like to live in the body? How does that look? How does the body function even? And whether you come from the church or whether you're church adjacent, and what I mean by when I say church adjacent, I think I'm the only one who uses that, but I say that because maybe you didn't come from the church, but you grew up in a culture that was heavily influenced by the church. So any country that comes from, has a history of colonization, Western influence, you've probably been influenced by the ideas of the church. And these ideas of disconnecting from the body, that because we can't trust the body, they're not new ideas. They're written in the Bible, right? Like we see Paul wrestle with the body in the Bible. We see, let me know if this sounds familiar to you. We see verses that say things like, the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Right?
Yes, we were just talking about that in the group last week. How do we reconcile that? Yes.
This. For me, it's been really helpful to know that these were ideas that early church writers, early Christian writers who wrote the Bible were writing, that were influenced by Plato and Aristotle. Plato said that the body is the prison of the mind, and these Hellenistic philosophers were very strongly believing that things of intellect, things of spirituality, things of psychology, things of the mind were better than carnal things of the flesh. The word carnal means of the flesh. And we have probably, even as I'm saying that word, flesh, carnal, you're probably even feeling in your body there's like this negative connotation that's associated with it. Right? Because that has been ingrained in us all the way back from Hellenistic culture, which was happening the same time as the biblical writers. They were heavily influenced by this. But even farther back, it's actually early Egyptian mystics that came up with this idea that the body is the prison for the mind. And so all throughout human history, we've had this idea that the body is bad, that intellect is good, and that we need to beat the body into submission in order to achieve our higher selves. And it's really interesting because for me, I'm the mother of 2 Indigenous children, although I don't have that same heritage. My own heritage is that I'm first generation Asian Canadian on my dad's side. He's from Singapore. My grandfather was from China. And so I have this influence on both sides of Western and Eastern ideals. And what's interesting to me is that countries pre-colonization, communities pre-colonization, didn't have the same idea that we needed to have this split between mind and body. We didn't need to have this disconnection between the parts of ourselves, but that we could see the fullness of our personhood and the fullness of our humanity that is mind, body, and soul. But that body piece is important, and that our body isn't just the thing that gets us from point A to point B. It's not just the, as you hear people say, the meat suit that we walk around in. Something that holds goodness and is something that holds wisdom. And so to answer your question about where does this come from? How did we get disembodied, disconnected? And what does trauma look like? How does it show up in the body? Trauma happens when we disconnect parts of ourselves from the fullness of who we are. And that can look like a lot of different things. There's like acute trauma that is like things like PTSD, because something a traumatic experience happened in your life. You can pinpoint this was one thing. I was in a car accident. I narrowly survived this health risk. I was shipped off to war. Any of those things. My family are refugees. We fled war. It can look like any of those experiences. But trauma can also look like I was shut down repeatedly to the point that in order to survive, I learned a new way of coping, and that was to make myself small. And that was to not ask questions. And that was to not take up too much space. So all of those things are trauma that lives in the body. And what we know now from the science that is coming out is that it's not just the trauma from the experience that we go through in our lives. And I do want to take a quick pause and say, every time you touch the body, you touch every experience that person has ever walked through, that you or someone else has ever walked through, because our bodies experience everything that we do. When someone says something that we hear and we go, ooh, I don't like that. I don't like how that made me feel. Or maybe the comment isn't even about you. Maybe you've heard somebody say, oh, I don't like people who have curly hair. And you've heard somebody say that about somebody else. And then you go, oh, maybe I'm going to straighten my hair from now. And so we shift and we adjust as a result because our bodies are wired to protect us. They're wired for our survival. So all of those things can create trauma that we experience. But what we know from the science is also that our bodies inherit the trauma that our parents and our grandparents and everyone in our ancestry has gone through as well, because we learn how to survive to keep ourselves safe by creating new patterns. I did this and I got that bad reaction and that threatened my survival. So now I'm going to do this instead. And for me, and for many of us who are sitting in this community and who are watching this summit right now, because we grew up in religious communities, because we grew up in faith communities, and some of us hold religious trauma, maybe we spoke out when we asked questions, and that was squashed by our faith leaders. Maybe we noticed that the community that we were a part of was very homogenous. I grew up in white-dominated churches, right? Primarily white, middle class, evangelical, very privileged churches. And I remember the community that I grew up in, I was one of 2 Asian families. And so I actually assimilated myself in order to fit in, because I wanted to belong, because I wanted to feel safe in that community, because I didn't want to be the one who didn't match, the one who didn't fit in. And so maybe this is resonating with you or with many others that are watching us right now, with the way that we then cut off parts of ourselves and disconnect parts of ourselves in order to fit with the dominant group. That's trauma. Anything that creates that disconnection from self. And when you have a faith that their cornerstone says you need to be saved, because there's something in you that from the beginning of time, since Adam and Eve, has been inherently bad and evil. You are wrong and you can't trust yourself. Lean not on your own understandings. Trust us, because we have the answers and we have the way. And you need something externally from yourself to save you, rather than, no, you're actually made in the image of God and there's goodness in you that you cannot run away from, that you don't need some magic prayer to fix, that you don't need some program to make you better because you're broken and you're evil and you can't trust yourself. No, there's inherent wisdom in your body. And you can build a relationship to yourself, with your body, that is in alignment with your faith, that is in alignment with your values, where you don't have to cut off and abandon and push aside parts of yourself in shame, but you can welcome all of these pieces of yourself back in with wholeness and health and goodness.
Yeah. So you talk about the layers of it. We're not just a product of our own experiences, but there's these ancestral lines of trauma. And I've talked about this with other people, and there's always that moment of, oh, can I ever heal it? Can I ever get better? Like, if maybe I can work through my stuff, but what about all that stuff I was given that's been passed down, and maybe I don't even know about it? So for someone who's sitting in the audience now thinking, there's a lot of trauma in my family, what would you encourage them to sit with? Where do we go from here if we've got a really long line of ancestral trauma?
Yeah, we all do. That's the thing. We all do have a really long line of ancestral trauma. We're not the first one in any of our lineages. And I think one of the things that is really freeing about that is that it didn't start with you. Like, again, you're not broken. And if there's anything that you hear from this session or from this summit as a whole, I want to repeat it again. You are not broken. You're not broken.
Yeah.
We just inherited a shitty situation.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
We're living in a world that is broke. We aren't, but the world around us is not set up for human existence. It's set up for profit. It's set up for power. It's set up for gain. We live in an undeniably patriarchal, capitalist, white supremacist, and colonized society. Those are facts. That's the world that all of us were born into. We didn't ask for it. That's just the way it is. We have a 40-hour work week, not because that's optimized for best human performance or for creativity or for innovation. That's because we make the most money that way. And not
Right.
even for us. We make the most money for whoever's at the top of our pyramid. I think it's really important for us to sit back and to recognize that this didn't start with us. And yet this is what we're born into. And to your question of, can it feel so overwhelming? Yeah, it can. So can we sit in that? And what does that look like? What does it look like to sit in that? Because for most of us, I want you to take a pause right now. And I want to ask you, as we're having this conversation, to notice what's happening in your body. Are you feeling within the ecosystem of your body? Do you feel that anxiety rising? What does that feel like? Does that feel like, oh, I feel like there's this pressure cooker within me? I feel like heat coming up, or I feel like I'm underwater. I feel like I'm struggling to breathe. I feel like the walls are closing in around me. Or maybe you're feeling like I'm feeling flighty within my body, cold right now. I'm like, what are the sensations in your body? Maybe you feel the opposite. Maybe as you're seeing all of these pieces come together, you're actually feeling, oh, I'm feeling release from this because I thought this was my fault. I thought I was fucked up. I thought I was bad. I thought I needed somebody to save me. And maybe that's not the case. Maybe I was just born into a world that wasn't built for me.
Yeah.
Right?
As were your parents or your extended family, whoever raised you, they were born into the same
Yeah.
situation. So
Right.
we have layer upon layer of learned behavior that perpetuates the cycles. And what deconstructing really is saying, maybe I want to learn something new. Maybe there's something different here. What if? I feel like what if is the biggest question when we're deconstructing our faith. So I think I want to pose that now. What if we do spend some time learning to trust our bodies? What's that? Can you just share for people who don't have a framework of what that could be like? What's possible?
Yeah. The biggest thing is it looks like coming back into relationship with your body, learning to trust your body again, and learning to befriend your body, learning to listen to your body, right? Learning to look at your body as part of who you are.
That's
part
good.
of humanhood. This is part of your personhood. This is part of who you are, right? This isn't some that we like can separate these pieces of ourselves. This is part of who we are that we haven't listened to. And again, this isn't your fault. This isn't because you're broken. What is the very first thing that we do to babies on their very first day of earth? When they cry out and try to express, what do we do to them? Shh.
Yeah.
Babies have emotions just like the rest of us. They're human just like the rest of us. So the baby is feeling all the things within them that you and I feel every single day. Will I be loved? Are people going to accept me? Where are my people? Where's my community? Where will I be safe? Baby is expressing those things and they go, shh, quiet. Shh.
Yeah. Don't
Right?
disrupt your surroundings.
Don't take up too much. And what do we say? Oh, they're such a good baby, because a good baby means a quiet baby. And so we have been taught from day one on earth to be quiet, to be small, to not take up too much space, and most importantly, not to feel what's happening within our bodies. And so if I were to say there's any one place for you to start, by sitting in your body and listen to your body. And one of the things when I start working with clients, one of the first things that happens very often in our very first introduction session is tears. Tears will just come up and they'll say, I don't know why I'm crying. And I go, you know what? It's probably because your body is saying, oh my gosh, are you listening to me?
You're here. Yay. You're here. We're connected. Yeah.
Like I have been silenced for 20, 30 plus years, who knows? And all of a sudden you're going to sit with me and you're going to listen to me and you're going to let me point out the things that I have been carrying for so long.
Yeah. It almost, this is such a random analogy, but sometimes I think in pictures. And what I just pictured is like when you get into your car and your radio's turned on and you get in and you start it and it's just like this, like it's almost overwhelming, right? Like the radio's on, the fan is on, all these things are happening and they're normal. They're just, they just need to be adjusted because you're not in sync with them. But it can feel very much like, whoa, what just happened? Like it totally hit that fight, flight, or freeze thing.
Yeah, and to name, that's your autonomic nervous system in your body. It's autonomic because you don't have any control of it, and it's put in place to protect you. That's why when you're in a religious community, a faith community, and something feels off, you feel it in your body. When you're around a spiritual leader and something feels off, your body is trying to point that out to you. We've been taught to silence it because we grew up in communities where somebody who was at the top, who was in leadership, maybe wasn't accountable to that leadership and didn't want us to question and wanted the following and the control. But there's something in our bodies that goes, hold up, there's something wrong here. And it pushes you into that autonomic nervous system activation and that fight. It's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. It's actually 4 different ways that we interact with our environment. And so this can happen when you are so used to being disconnected from your body. A lot of the times when I'm working with a new client and that I hear in spaces like this is, what if it doesn't feel safe in my body? Yeah. What if I'm scared to be present in my body? Because again, I was raised my whole life to distrust my body. And I know there's trauma and it will hurt to feel it. I don't want to feel it because it will hurt too much. And so what I say with my clients is that there's these 3 spaces in our lives. There's our comfort zone. That's like a circle. I think of this as a pie, right? Yeah. It's all the yummy goodness. It's sweet and it's tasty. And we like to hang out in the comfort zone, the center of the pie. And then there's this little crust around the edge. And it's a little hard. It keeps us safe, but it's a little hard. And we sit in that, and that's our learning zone. It's a little uncomfortable. I know I'm getting stretched right now. It's hard, but I'm safe enough that I'm not pushed outside of the pie where my now autonomic nervous system, my fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response is now being triggered where I feel like I need to pull back because it's too much. And so what I want to encourage us to do is, as we're learning these new skills, as we're working to heal trauma and rewrite these responses and rewrite these patterns that we've been walking for a long time, because you know what? They kept us safe. And that's a good thing. That's not something we should look at with judgment. Oh my God, I can't believe I did this. No, don't look at it with judgment. Just be like, why did I do this? I did this to keep myself safe.
That gratitude is really important.
It's really
breaking that pattern of shame that the church really pushes, the unhealthy church really pushes.
Ooh. Yeah, because shame is one of the most powerful tools of control. And if I can teach you not to trust yourself, but to trust me, then I got you.
Right. If you'll shut down your intuition and take my word over your own, you're not going to run. You're not going to fight back because you're not listening to that autonomic system. Yeah. We've got some people in the audience here who are like, hey, that kind of sounds like me. That sounds like me. I feel like maybe I'm really disconnected from my body and I don't know how to trust. What's one simple thing that they could practice or they could engage with over the next week to start coming out of their shell a little bit and start moving closer to that trust?
Getting into a relationship with your body. And this is going to feel really foreign and it's going to feel really weird at first. But it could look like, can we take a pause in our day and turn off all of the external stimuli that we have?
Even my phone?
I know, even my phone, trust me.
I'm telling you, this is the biggest obstacle to embodiment that I have.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because it keeps me in my head.
Exactly. I can stay so disconnected and not listen to my body as long as I've got TikTok.
It keeps me in my head. Yeah. And these are great resources. I'm glad we have our phone. I'm glad we have TikTok. I love my online community and I love the ability to connect. Like, I'm such a nerd. I love the ability to connect to information all the time. But if I'm connected to information in my head, am I receiving the information in my body?
Yeah, exactly.
Am I connected to the relationship in my body? So if we can take some time to turn those things off just for a little bit, to take some deep breaths.
Yeah.
Feel the air filling in our lungs, to fill the air in our belly. Because one of the things that I notice is, and this can come to many different things. We constrict to take up less space. Some of that can be because it has its roots in white supremacy and fat phobia and black phobia. So we don't want to be big. For those of us who live in female assigned bodies, especially, or female perceived bodies, we don't want big bellies unless maybe we're pregnant. But we see that as something that is bad. And again, then our survival, like, I don't want to be seen as bad. And this again comes from that history of patriarchy and colonization and white supremacy that the church exists in. To take up that space, to take a deep breath, the most human thing that you can do. Take that deep breath to fill in your lungs, to fill in your belly, to allow all of those muscles to let go and relax, to say, you've done a good job. Can we relax now? Right?
Yeah. And even this posture is a really powerful posture for connecting with your body. Instead, you notice Tara instinctively put her hand over her heart and then the other hand down on the belly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Can we care for this body? Can we sit with this body and be present? And if things come up, you may find right away that there are sensations that come up in the body. It can feel like tingles. It could feel like heat rising. It could feel like all kinds of different things. Does it have a sound? Does it have a feeling? Sometimes it has, it's cold, it's hot, there's sensations, right? This is your way that your body is speaking to you. This is the language of the body. Sometimes it can even feel like, I feel nothing. It feels numb. And then again, we have this thought, oh, am I broken? No, numbness is a sensation too. Maybe the body is saying, I don't feel safe to go there. Are you going to listen to me? Are you going to trust me? What if something comes up and it's going to be too much? And then that's when we sit there and we learn to sit with it. It's not going to be too much for us. It's not going to consume us. Sometimes we need the support while we do, because sometimes there's something in us that needs to be seen, that needs to be heard, that must be witnessed, because humans are pack animals. We're meant to live in community.
I love that. Humans are, yeah, we absolutely are. We absolutely are.
And when we lost our connection to that animalistic side of us, we lost some of our embodiment. And we lose that connection to that like animalistic side of us because of colonization, civilization, being proper. We go to church because that's what proper people do. And so much of this, again, is how do we remember to be human again? That's what embodiment is. Healing trauma is really just another way of saying, how do we take off all of the things that were put on us that are not from us?
Right.
That's what healing trauma is. How do we get rid of all of that toxic theology and limiting beliefs and the fears that we have held because we were taught to conform rather than expand? How to come back home to our bodies, to remember how to be human.
Such a beautiful note. Yeah. And I think I would also encourage people. I was really disconnected from my body. I had a lot of physical trauma unresolved, a lot of emotional trauma unresolved. And this isn't an overnight thing. This isn't a, hey, if I sit down with the right candle and do some deep breaths, then I'm fully connected to my body forever. So I would just add, have some grace and some patience, and as you're learning to trust yourself, give yourself the space to start out itty bitty and know that's amazing. If you can only stay connected for 60 seconds, cool, look what you just did. Yeah. Your body is going to be so grateful for that. And if it's maybe tomorrow, it's only 15 seconds because you're recovering from today.
But sit in that pie crust. If our comfort zone is, I don't want to feel anything at all, can we sit in the pie crust and just feel a little bit?
Exactly. It's not an all or nothing. It's not you're not in or out. Like we talked about in a different session. I don't know if it's aired yet or not, but we talk a lot about how toxic religion has really tries to force us to these extremes of you're either totally connected to your body or you're totally disconnected. And that's not true. There's a whole range in there. And you're just trust that your body is still going to be there, even if you struggle to connect with it today. If you have
you're not better or worse.
Exactly.
Not better or worse for how much you're able to sit in it. It does not, it's no measure of your character or your faithfulness or your integrity at all. It is no measure.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
You're doing better or worse than someone else. Just sit in that pie crust for you, where it's okay, I'm stretching, it's a little bit uncomfortable. It's like learning to walk or ride a bike for the first time. It's hard to learn these new skills, right? That learning zone, that pie crust. And if you need to, if it's too much, just take a step back into the yummy comfort zone.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I do with people, we always have your body is your teacher. I'm not your teacher. I'm not here to replace your pastor. I'm not here to replace some expert or some guru, because nobody can teach you about your body or your connection to the divine better than you can.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So powerful.
Your body is your teacher, and we only go where your body gives consent. If your body says, no, too much, great, take a step back and sit in that pie crust.
Right.
Your body says, nope, I'm not ready for it. I know the trauma's there. That's fine. You don't need to tell me.
We don't need to go there today. It's like the junk drawer. I know my junk drawer. I know my junk closet overflowing. You don't have to open the door to remind me. Thanks.
Exactly. I'll get there when I'm ready to get there.
Exactly.
Cool. Let's just take a baby step, and let's maybe sit there and be like, okay, I'm curious about the junk drawer. I don't need to open it, but like, I wonder what's in it.
Yeah. And I wonder if there's anything in there I want.
Yeah.
Maybe
not.
In there
that I can let go of? Is there something there that I can speak truth to? Is it even true at all? Is it true at all? Or am I scared of the socks under them? So let's sit in that pie crust where it's safe enough. And when we're ready, that pie crust will expand and go, oh, okay, the things that I was scared of, not too bad. I can do that. Look at my capacity grow. I can do hard. You can do hard things. And that pie crust will grow bigger as you start to trust yourself more, as you come back home to your body and you realize that you have everything within you that you already need.
Yeah. Thank you for that. You've mentioned a couple times that you work with people. So I would love it if you could just tell us like where to find you, and if people want to keep learning from you. How do we do that? Where are you at?
Yeah, I would love to connect with people, even if it's just to say, hey, I would so love to hear a little, whatever you want to share with me. I'm always honored when I hear bits of people's stories. And again, there's something in us that wants to know that we're not alone. And so please reach out. You can find me across all social media, Tara Teng or at Miss Tara Teng. My website is tarateng.com. You can read all kinds of stuff about what I'm doing on there. And when I have events, my Patreon is connected in there, and digital events, in-person events, and of course, one-on-one coaching. If you're feeling like this is something that I need more support around, and I want to be more connected to my body, I want to be able to heal trauma, any kind of trauma that you might be carrying, and I need some support in that. I want to be fully seen and witnessed and walked alongside, then it's such an honor for me to be able to do that with people. And I do that with people every single day. So if there's something in your body that is feeling this prompt for something more, then feel free, please reach out. I would love to hear from you with whatever prompting you're feeling in your body, whether it be just say, hey, or let's maybe work together, or I'd love to attend one of your events, either online or in person. I would love to hear from you and witness your story in whatever capacity you want to share.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll make sure we've got links right below that they can find you. Thanks so much for being here. I know we talked a little bit before the recording even started, but I feel like there's so much wisdom that you bring to the table. So thanks for carving out some time for us. Those of you who are watching, make sure you're dropping comments in the chat and over in the cafe. I would love to just keep this conversation going, because I don't think we can talk about it enough. I don't think we can talk about this connection between trauma and bodies and faith enough. Because there are always going to be people who don't know it. So we'll just keep talking about it, and we will look you up online and make sure that we connect with all of your different places. Those of you watching at home, thanks so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next session.